You look at Iran. Iran is basically closed off economically. No one's investing there. It's an Islamic republic, meaning that it is an Islamic dictatorship. They have no money coming in. They cannot threaten the rest of the world the way they could even a year and a half ago. What they are partially afraid of, I would assume in Saudi Arabia, is the possibility that the Iranian government is full-scale replaced by a secularist regime that actually becomes a center for investment for a lot of the rest of the world and then becomes a regional powerhouse. And a lot of countries look at the board and they try to figure out exactly where the power is going and how to minimize the power of possible opponents, even, by the way, if it would be better for the world for the Iranian regime to go.
Should America seek a deal with Iran or bring in military action? Check out this great clip over here with Ben Shapiro talking about what's going on in Iran. We'll watch it together and then we'll talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
The U.S. military buildup in the Middle East continues. According to the U.S. Sun, a huge American military buildup near Iran has been seen for the first time in new satellite images as President Trump lays the groundwork for ending the repressive Islamic regime. Satellite imagery shows at least a dozen F-15E attack planes at Mufawak Salti Air Base in Jordan. 12 warships have assembled near the Middle East as well. Unclear which way President Trump is going to decide to go here. Will he act? Will he not act? Obviously, there are a lot of people in Iran who are devastated by the fact that the United States wasn't in a position to act in the middle of those protests when President Trump said, stay out in the streets, help is on its way, and it has now been a month. And tens of thousands of people, by many accounts at this point, were murdered by the Iranian regime. There's still talk about the possibility of negotiations. Those negotiations seem to be collapsing because, of course, Iran is not giving ground on virtually any issue. They're not giving ground on their nuclear program. They're not giving ground on their ballistic missile program. They're not giving ground on their support of terrorist groups. The Iranian foreign minister, he came out and he suggested that the enrichment is non-negotiable and there would be no retreat, and that he doubts that the U.S. actually intends to do anything. Openly calling President Trump's bluff has not historically been a good move. Here's Abbas Arahi, translated. This is from Iranian Press TV.
The issue of ballistic missiles is off table. The issue and the main focus of negotiations is nuclear, and it will be so. It will remain so. The presence of CENTCOM's commander doesn't change anything at all, and we have been told that he's there to visit their own naval forces in the region. There was a request from the U.S. side to be present, and this demand was and request was rejected outright by the Iranian side, and we said that we don't accept the presence of a military commander in negotiations, and we think that there is no connection between CENTCOM commander and the nuclear talks.
Now, again, good luck to them. I mean, if they think that that is going to work out well for them, I would suggest they probably have another thing coming. I think that probably the Iranian stall here is an attempt to basically drive the American isolationist wing into the idea that America must do nothing, and that if America commits to any serious military action against Iran, that suddenly this will entail hundreds of thousands of American troops on the ground. Again, President Trump is not going to do that. My suspicion is that the reason the president is taking time is to ensure that American forces have all of the anti-missile equipment that they need over there in case Iran decides to retaliate against, for example, American air bases in places like Iraq, in Jordan, in Saudi, in Kuwait, in UAE, in Qatar, and all the rest. Suffice it to say that if the Trump administration takes heavy action against the Iranians, it will certainly be justified at this point. The Iranians keep threatening. There's nothing new about this. If you read American history, pretty much all of America's enemies have always counted on the American isolationist wing, plus the left-wing anti-American wing, to undercut American military action. Always. They're always hoping that domestic opinion is going to undercut the ability of the United States to do what it should do in many arenas of the world. Again, no one is calling for a full-scale ground invasion of Tehran. No one's talking about that. No one wants that. It's interesting to see how the politics of the Middle East have shifted a little bit. You've seen some people in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, which is, of course, very anti-Iranian, because Saudi Arabia is Sunni and Iran is Shia, and Iran has put Saudi right in its crosshairs for decades. You've seen Saudi now militating against serious American action in some quarters. One of the reasons for that is because Saudi Arabia actually prefers a prostrate Iran rather than a different regime in Iran or the possibility of internal civil war in Iran. Right now, if you're Saudi Arabia, you look at Iran. Iran is basically closed off economically. No one's investing there. It's an Islamic republic, meaning that it is an Islamic dictatorship. They have no money coming in. They cannot threaten the rest of the world the way they could even a year and a half ago. And so Saudi is kind of okay with the current situation. What they are partially afraid of, I would assume in Saudi Arabia, is the possibility that the Iranian government is full-scale replaced by a secularist regime that actually becomes a center for investment for a lot of the rest of the world and then becomes a regional powerhouse, because that takes power away from Saudi Arabia. Again, when it comes to geopolitics is a zero-sum game. And a lot of countries look at the board and they try to figure out exactly where the power is going and how to minimize the power of possible opponents, even, by the way, if it would be better for the world for the Iranian regime to go. Khamenei, for his part, he continues to emphasize defiance. Ayatollah Khomeini's grandson says that any Muslim country will do to Israel what Hamas did once it can, which is delightful.
وإسرائيل يعلم وأمريكا يعلم.
He said Israel knows, America knows, and the leaders of the superpowers know that if a day comes when the Islamic countries are capable of bombing Israel, they will do it. You mean the Gulf countries, the Arab countries, the Islamic countries? He says all the Muslim nations. We are not afraid of them at all because we are steadfast and we are defending our rights in our country. We say to the Americans, you will die before you see us humiliated. Well, die laughing? I mean, like, you guys were pretty humiliated last year. So there's that.
Nobody wants a full-scale war with Iran. Not the United States, not Israel, and certainly not the Iranian people, who have already paid a heavy price for decisions that they never chose. But clarity matters over here. And the clearest truth is this: the regime in Tehran is unusually weak right now, and that creates a rare moment in history. Moments like this don't last forever. Inside of Iran, daily life has become unbearable for millions of people. The economy is in free fall. Money loses value almost as fast as people earn it. Prices rise, wages don't. And the middle class is being crushed. Now, that kind of pressure doesn't produce stability, obviously. It produces anger and fear and eventually revolt. And over the past year, protests have returned across the country, and each time the government responds the same way: arrests, intimidation, and silence. Not reform, not listening. And we see this happening right here, right now, where the protests have been stronger than they've ever been. Now, why does this matter for America? Because the Iranian regime doesn't just rule badly at home. It projects instability abroad. It funds and arms proxy forces across the Middle East, keeping multiple regions in a constant state of tension. Every one of those flashpoints risks pulling the United States into another crisis that it doesn't want and doesn't need. Then there's the nuclear issue. Iran continues to move closer to nuclear weapons capability while limiting transparency and cooperation. That creates fear, miscalculation, and pressure on everyone in the region. History teaches us that wars often begin not with intention, but with uncertainty. And so the choice is not between war and doing nothing. There's a third path, and it's both moral and strategic. Help the Iranian people to take down their own regime. That means supporting access to information, protecting communication channels, targeting pressure at the regime's security and financial elites. It means making clear that the world distinguishes between the Iranian people and the rulers who oppress them. This is not about forcing regime change from the outside. It's about refusing to prop up a system that survives by fear alone. In Jewish thought, power is never measured by how tightly you hold control. It's measured by whether you use strength to create life, dignity, and hope. The Iranian regime is weakest when it's exposed to truth, and the Iranian people are strongest when they know that they're not alone. The best way to prevent war is not to empower tyrants, but to help a people remember that their future belongs to them. If you like this content overall, that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.